With nearly 60 years of history behind it, it's inevitable that there's going to be some reusing of ideas and episode plots in Star Trek. That's fine. We're looking at the episodes that have been released since the return of Star Trek, as in the premiere of Discovery in 2017. When you start to see reusing of plots in a smaller amount of time, that's when they start to stand out a little bit more. I'm Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 modern Star Trek plots that are the same. Number 10. Sam Rutherford vs. Red, Data vs. Lore. In Lower Decks' third season episode Reflections, Ensign Rutherford finds himself at odds with himself. Or at least, he's battling a variation of himself, a holdover from a time before his implant was grafted to his skull. This version of himself, Red, is far less agreeable and far less of a people pleaser. The two sides of this personality must battle each other for control of the one Rutherford body. In Picard's third season episode Surrender, Data and Lore are revealed to now be sharing the same golem body. Without total control, it seems as though the Titan A will fall to the changeling forces under Vadic. There follows a beautiful exchange between the brothers as Data hands items from his memory to his evil twin. Though neither outcome was unexpected, there is a catharsis in seeing both Sam Rutherford and Data gain complete control over themselves again. It is certainly a similar plot point between the two shows, with some lovely Easter eggs in Picard, hello Tasha, and some crucial information in Lower Decks. Commander, buen amigo? Here, it simply boils down to taking a good idea and applying it across the board. Number 9. End of the universe. Oh no! Control will wipe out everything! How can we stop it? Oh no! The burn destroyed all warp-capable ships! How can we fix it? Oh no! The DMA is destroying planets at random! How can we avoid it? Does the crew of the USS Discovery ever get a week off? Do they get a bit of downtime where they can just have shore leave, catch up with friends, maybe go to the bar for a drink or some food? No? It seems as though every few minutes a new devastating calamity is waiting to swallow them up and spit them back out again. It certainly makes perfect sense that the Discovery, equipped with its spore drive, would be the first ship called on in most situations. What gets a bit repetitive is when, despite all of the advancements made, it's still the only ship. Star Trek has more often than not focused on a single ship, so that isn't the issue. The issue is the dialogue, in which the ship is often referred to in almost messianic terms, not far away from, well, if Discovery can't do it, we're doomed. Doomed! Seriously, build a better fleet, or maybe make friends with some Q or something. Number 8. Pelia Guinan. Picard's second season sees Picard meeting Guinan in the past, specifically the 21st century, down in LA where she is tending bar. Though they have, of course, already met several times, this being the second time from Guinan's point of view after San Francisco, there are many rules around time travel that must be observed. Almost concurrently, La'an Noonien Singh and James T. Kirk are traipsing from Toronto to Vermont to see Pelia, a similarly long-lived being, building her huge collection of antiques, hoping for her help. The Strange New Worlds episode Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow depicts these two officers, both from different futures, being flung back into their common past in 2023. The fact that there are two alien women on planet Earth at the same time is hardly the shocker here. It's the fact that these two alien women, both of whom will still be alive in the 23rd and 24th centuries, are the sole means of help for our standard time travelers. It's a little too similar not to notice, no matter how much fun it is to see them in the past. Number 7. Texas Class. Star Trek Lower Decks' third season concludes with the revolt of the Texas-class ships, fully automated, attacking starships and starbases alike. There is, in fact, a fairly harrowing scene depicting the starbase taking an absolute pasting from these vessels, with several people very clearly killed as a result. The sequence is very similar to the assault on Space Dock depicted in Star Trek Picard's final two episodes, Vox and The Last Generation. This again is a harrowing sequence depicting a fully automated Starfleet armada training all of their weapons against the most recognisable of landmarks. This series does go one step further. Space Dock actually does fall to the barrage. While the Texas-class ships do considerable damage to their Space Dock, Picard manages to depict a station that's fighting back. Though the end result is negative, it's a significant difference between these two stories, despite the premise being almost identical. At least one similarity between the episodes end up saving a lot of lives. There are only 3 Texas-class ships to contend with, and though the Armada in Picard is called the entire fleet a number of times, it's clearly only a portion of what Starfleet has to offer. If either show had shown anything close to Starfleet's full potential, it's entirely possible that the only thing appearing post-2401 will be floating debris in space. Number 6. Living Construct. And here we go again. Automation threatening Starfleet. This time it comes in the form of the Living Construct, a devastating AI weapon that's placed on board the USS Protostar, turning the finest of Starfleet ships into a ticking time bomb, ready to cripple any Federation ships that get too close. There are just enough subtle differences in this plot that it's not exactly the same as either Lower Decks Texas class or Picard's assimilated Armada, but in essence, we have another fleet that's being controlled from a central evil source, ready to infect every Starfleet ship that it comes into contact with. There's no arguing that the sequence showing the living construct going live is almost as chilling as Skynet's inevitable rise, and the visuals remain as gorgeous as the first time we saw them, but it all simply begs the question. Between this, the Texas class, which would have come before, and the Borg-infected fleet, has Starfleet got any firewalls in place on its ships? Number 5. Frontier Day. Let's put aside the notion of gathering the entire fleet in one spot for a moment and concentrate on, yes, you've guessed it, another fully automated fleet being hijacked. In this scenario, Starfleet sets itself up for demise by creating fleet formation, a system that will allow other ships to join in on the fun, should one become incapacitated. On paper, there is perhaps a bit of merit to this idea. However, this is set in 2401, after the awful experiences with both the Texas-class ships and the living construct aboard the Protostar. The kinks clearly haven't been worked out of the system, shown when not only are the Borg able to infiltrate the ships, but then both the Titan A and the Excelsior are able to overcome it for however short a time. The truth of the matter is that, though the storyline is problematic in its own way, the fact that all 3 of these shows take place so close together in terms of airing, it's very hard not to immediately lump them together. One has to struggle to stop oneself from shouting at the screen, "Have you learned nothing?" Number 4. It's the Borg. There are other villains. So, the first season of Picard saw the return, in a manner of speaking, of the Borg, Starfleet's greatest enemy of all time. They arrived with a twist. This impressive Borg cube was in fact crewed by XBs, drones who had been liberated from the Collective. They shared their space with Romulan refugees, and were eventually betrayed by them. The second season of Picard saw the return, in a manner of speaking, of the Borg. This time, they had a new ship and a new version of the Queen. After a season of time travel hijinks, the Queen was revealed to be an assimilated Agnes Jurati, and the Borg were, in fact, friendly. The third season of Picard saw the return, in a manner of... okay, you get the point. While the final version of the Borg, seeing the return of the Borg Queen, voiced once more by Alice Krige, was certainly the most intimidating, there was no escaping the fact that they had become a little old hat at this point. The franchise's over-reliance on them as a primary antagonist dulls the impact of their arrival, so that the reveal of the Borg cube behind the red door in Jack Crusher's mind was a bit like... okay then. That's not to say the following episodes weren't impressive, but please, for now at least, let the Borg die. Number 3. Evil Starfleet. Starfleet is evil! Now that sounds like a heck of a statement, but when evil Starfleet storylines get pitched again, and again, and again, it seems as though this once glorious organization is in fact one of the most devastating empires in history. Star Trek Picard depicted a Starfleet that was bruised and broken, okay, not evil, but refused flat out to help the Romulans after the incident on Mars. Billions died as a result. Star Trek Discovery depicts a Starfleet that would happily commit genocide on the Klingon homeworld, or created a program that could wipe out all life in the galaxy. Star Trek Lower Decks depicted yet another evil admiral in the form of Buenamigo. Once again, this is an example of the writers in the franchise not collaborating on their efforts. This theme of an evil or darker version of Starfleet, while not new to Star Trek, having so many examples of darker Starfleet so close together, seems like several good ideas tripping up over each other. Number 2. Time travel from an alternate future. Let's travel back in time so we can fix the future that's broken. Star Trek Picard's second season spends the bulk of its running time in the past, or our present to be more exact. With Q having interfered to teach Jean-Luc a lesson, the future is now controlled by the evil Confederation, Picard as a brutal warlord, and Seven as president of Earth. Seems a bit sus, really. The heroes travel back in time via the trusty slingshot around the sun technique before working on setting things to right. Thankfully, Q sends them home again. In the Strange New Worlds episode, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which has already appeared on this list, La'an and Kirk are flung back to the 21st century. In this case, it's Kirk who has travelled from the darker future, one where Starfleet and the Vulcans are not allies, and both are facing crushing losses to the Romulans. Thankfully, their actions in the past ensure the restoration of a brighter, more hopeful future. Both stories have their ups and downs, but the time travel gimmick tends to get a little old quite quickly. Number 1. Genetically engineered pariah. Strange New Worlds, Prodigy, and, to a lesser extent, Picard have all gone in with storylines about genetic engineering. If we look at Trek of old, it was certainly discussed. Space Seed, the Masterpiece Society, and Statistical Probabilities all dealt with it head-on. In Picard, Kore is hidden away from the world due to her father, Adam Sung, his inability to create the perfect genome for her. Though this is cured by Q, it leads to Adam reaching out for a folder titled Project Khan. This may only be a small nod to the history of Star Trek and the eugenics wars, but Prodigy and Strange New Worlds both take on the subject much more overtly, and arguably in a very similar fashion. Una Chin Riley and Dal's experiences with Starfleet, including their initial rejection due to their genetically engineered status, neither of which they were responsible for, is incredibly similar. Both of them face discrimination for their status, and both are eventually welcomed into, or back into, service. Whether it's Advocate Neera's passionate plea to accept Una's asylum, or Admiral Janeway's direct influence to make Dal a warrant officer, both examples depict Starfleet of the future upholding the centuries-long ban on genetic engineering, effectively barring both individuals from service for something entirely beyond their control. That's everything for our list. What do you think, folks? Do you think that there's a few more plots between the various modern Star Trek shows that share more than a few similarities? If you do, let us know in the comments below. Thank you very much, as always, for following along. Now, please remember you can go and follow us on Twitter at TrekCulture, same as Blue Sky at TrekCulture, and Instagram at TrekCultureYT. You can find myself at Sean Ferrick on Twitter as well. I'm also on Instagram and Blue Sky. Thank you so much to our wonderful editor, Martin, for making this thing look as good as it did. Everyone, until I see you again, make sure that you look after yourselves, make sure that you look after your nearest and dearest, lead with kindness, and above all else, live long and prosper. Thank you very much.